With milk quotas and other pressures on costs, the aim today is to produce a cheaper litre. Come with us now and see how one farmer, David Goddard of Odessa Farm, Tewkesbury, is farming his grass to produce maximum margin. Is a 100-acre, heavily stocked dairy farm in a low rainfall area. Here, good first and second cuts are vital, both in terms of quantity and quality. So David Goddard treats his grass as a crop and farms it to produce top yields per acre on as many acres as possible. This is done by buffer grazing, keeping the grazing herd on the minimum of grass early on. This year, 70 acres will go to first cut silage. All this leafy, nutritious grass has received 120 units of nitrogen per acre using the proven ICI system of 3.5 bags of ICI number 8 in March, followed by 1.5 bags of nitram in early April. For good second cuts, good regrowths are essential, and David considers it vital to cut early. This gives regrowths the best possible chance. Here the crop is being inspected. It has grown well and will yield heavily. The bottom of the crop shows that the leaves have not yet begun to die off and that they are still green, which means they will capture sunlight for quicker regrowth. The decision is taken to cut about May 5.
You know, maybe we can come back on our seed rate if we get the environment right.
When David moved into Odessa Farm in November 1977, the grass was permanent pasture. Since then, a complete reseeding program has been undertaken. As an experiment, this small field was not treated with any weed killer at all.
It's good over here. And you've got a lot of these wheat grasses coming in, an annual meadow grass, some of that in here. This whole area, that's good, and you've got this bad patch here with these wretched things in here. Okay.
This field was. The bottom is completely clean, leaving a good growth of the grasses that were sown. This sward will be cut in a couple of days' time. The grass in the bottom is still green, ideal for a good regrowth.
They are round things, and it looks very suspiciously like it to me. That has been suppressed, that all, you know, that would have been evident at this point.
Most of the fields have now been subsoiled with a paraplough. Here, a panometer shows that there is no sign of a pan. I want to show those roots in the bits down below.
Well done.
That's a sign of a well-cultivated soil.
How far down is that, right?
It's about, must be at least, well, over a foot, I would suggest.
That'll help in a drought, then.
Well, it won't do any harm, will it? Another very important aspect of grassland management is slurry spreading. Too heavy applications of slurry can kill out grass, which means that this grazing field will not yield to its absolute maximum potential. This year, David is cutting his grazing acreage right down to put more acres into silage. Good grass growth is absolutely essential with this system. This means applying 2 bags of nitrogen per acre in February or early March, then 2 bags of nitram again in April, and then again in May. This ensures the grass is fed with enough nitrogen. This keeps up good grazing on a smaller acreage, and that means more silage. To help ensure a quick regrowth, a stubble of 2 to 3 inches of green material is left. On David's farm, the whole aim of silage making is to harvest and get the job over quickly. The whole job is done within 3 to 4 days if possible. A contractor is used. He has a Heston Field Queen, which has very high work rates. Before the first cut is finished, David is already thinking about his second cut. He wants to get his K-nitro onto the stubble as soon as possible for rapid regrowth. Silage removes large quantities of potash. K-nitro is balanced with nitrogen and potash. Applied at 4 bags to the acre, K-nitro helps replace some of the potash removed and adds enough nitrogen to boost second cut yields. The new ICI grass planner helps David plan his workload. And then the idea is when you have fertilised grass, you tick it to say that it's been done and you know it's a job that's been done. Alternatively, you can put it up in the shed or something, and your man that does the fertilising can actually come along and see what he has to do at such and such a date, and he knows that he's got that work to do, so on and so forth. So that's the basic sort of theory behind that. And then, for example, you can also put on things like how many trailers. Maintaining a high level of intensive grass farming means keeping an eye on detail. Let's listen to what David has to say about his grassland management. Well, David, it's pretty obvious from looking around the farm that you're a very intensive grassland farmer. Could you just give us a few ideas on your sort of basic philosophy towards grass?
Right, yes, Ray. On this farm in particular, we have a very dry summer, and the idea is to grow as much grass in the early spring as possible, because from about the middle of June onwards we suffer from drought. So we try and grow as much as possible early in the season and conserve about 60% of the whole farm into silage for the first cut, 40% for grazing, and open up more fields for grazing as the season progresses and cut less acres towards the end of the season.
Do you think this buffer grazing, this idea of buffer grazing, is going to be useful to you this year?
Buffer feeding, you mean? Yeah, what we're doing this year is we've had some hay left over, and to keep the milk quality up, that's another consideration, of course, now with a low milk price in May and June. To keep the milk price up, we had to send a much higher quality milk. So yeah, we're feeding hay. Cows are actually being kept in at night, and they're having hay during the night and only out to grass during the daytime. And this is enabling us to shut up an extra field, about an extra 13 acres to what we would normally do. Yeah, it's going to be a help.
On the question of reseeding, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you look upon your grass as a crop in much the same way that a cereal farmer would look upon cereals as a crop. Do you really think that it's worth spending that additional money on weed killers and pesticides and that sort of thing?
Yes, because I can't afford to have a failure on a small farm. It's only 107 acres, and there's at least that many cows plus calves and things. So I can't really afford to have a field not producing in the spring. And history has sort of told me in past experience that if I have any problems with fruit fly or some pest problems or get a bad weed problem, that first harvest year doesn't materialise. So I've probably taken up some of the philosophy of some of the wheat growers in that I've been using a Brit spray and a wireworm spray and pre-emergent herbicides to control any meadow grasses within the ryegrass that we planted as well.
For top yields, grass has to be farmed like a crop, with maximum attention to detail. The key to success is taking full advantage of early season growth. That's the time when grass really wants to grow. It's also the time to apply most of your nitrogen. David applies a total of 360 units an acre throughout the year, but over 220 units, or 2/3 of his nitrogen, go on by the middle of May. We hope this short film will have given you some ideas on how you can grow more grass and thereby benefit by producing a cheaper litre.